Well, we've come up to the sixth time of blessing, and this is primarily the final time of parents' impartation of blessing to their sons and daughters, although they'll continue to bless their sons and daughters on through adult life. But this is the time of marriage. And God intended for every marriage to be blessed by both sets of parents. And of course, in our modern day culture, that frequently doesn't happen. I talk to many heartbroken Christian parents who say, well, what if my son or daughter chooses some horrible person to marry that I don't agree with, that I don't think is from God, that I think is completely wrong? What do I do? Should I go to the wedding? Should I not go to the wedding? What should I do? And of course, the problem is way back earlier than that, where sons and daughters were not taught God's process of how to choose a marriage partner. Let me just say this. One of the critical things to teach sons and daughters at the time of puberty, when you're releasing them into manhood, releasing them into womanhood, as we talked about in the last session, is to talk with sons and daughters about what is our romantic relationship and marriage partner selection process in this family. Do we have a romantic relationship process? Do we have a marriage partner selection process in this family? And do you know that many families haven't even thought that through, haven't even talked about it? No idea. They just think, well, what's going to happen is our son will just go out there and one day he'll fall in love with some girl and he'll get married and that's how it works. Or our daughter will, fall in love with some man and then they'll get married and that's how it works. And that's what we did and that's how... No. We need to be a little bit more intentional than that, because I'll tell you what, the enemy has a strategy for your son. I guarantee you that. And the enemy has a plan for your daughter about how to destroy her future destiny, how to destroy her marriage in the future, and that sort of thing. So if we don't have an intentional plan, I'll tell you who fills vacuums, and that is Satan and demonic spirits, and the kingdom of darkness will fill vacuum. So as parents, we need to pray about with our sons and daughters, and as husband and wife, pray about, God, what is your plan for our children? What is our relationship, our romantic relationship plan? And how do we teach our sons and daughters? They're going to be emotionally attracted to people of the opposite gender, obviously, as they go through their teenage years. What are they supposed to do about that? How do they deal with that? That's what needs to happen. And because we haven't taught sons and daughters, many times they arrive at a point then where parents are very disappointed and wounded and angry about who they've chosen to marry, and children just come home and announce what they're doing. There hasn't been any preparation. There hasn't been any prayer together. There hasn't been any relationship in walking through that together. So God intended that every marriage would be blessed by both sets of parents. And I'll tell you what, for the parents to come to a wedding and impart blessing to their son and release him to cleave to his wife, impart blessing to their daughter and release her to cleave to her husband, that launches that marriage into a destiny and a fulfillment of what God has called them to do together. When parents stand against the wedding, they won't come to the wedding, they continue to maintain this marriage won't last 6 months and that kind of thing, it just creates turmoil and havoc and a huge impediment. So how do we prevent that? Well, by walking in God's ancient paths of marriage. So let's talk about that. So the very first idea is, what would a blessed marriage look like? Well, I've said a little bit of it. First of all, that the son and daughter would be blessed by both sets of parents in marriage. That the parents and the son and daughter are in agreement about the marriage partner and about the timing. Yes, this is the right person. This is the right time. We're all in agreement about that. That there would be an acceptance and a reception of the son or daughter's marriage partner, that the wedding would be attended and blessed by both sets of parents. That would be blessing. That's God's plan. Cursing at the time of marriage is when the parents refuse to come to the wedding. The parents maintain it's the wrong choice. This will never work. You shouldn't marry that person. I'm telling you, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. That's cursing that marriage. Or if parents refuse to accept the marriage partner, or if parents won't release the son or daughter to cleave to the spouse, they continue to hold an emotional tie with that son or emotional tie with that daughter. They're supposed to release them. Let me give you an example of one wise father. He had released his daughter to be married, and he had blessed the wedding and the marriage of this daughter and her husband. And a few weeks into marriage, the daughter and husband had had a huge fight, and they'd wounded and hurt each other. And she called her dad crying. She says, "Daddy, it's so terrible. I just want to come home." And he said, "Honey, you're there." "What? What do you?" "You are home. You don't live here anymore. This isn't your home. We'll always love you. We'll always support you. But you live with your husband now. We'll help you work through whatever's going on. We'll pray for you. We'll love you. You can come for a visit, but you don't live here anymore. You are home." What a wise father. And he did help his daughter work through the initial conflicts and the problems they were having. But he understood the principle of release. He understood, no, I can't rescue my daughter from all the problems of marriage or my son, either way. No, I have to release them. It's like I can't help the caterpillar in the cocoon as a butterfly to break the cocoon. If I do that, they'll never be able to fly. They'll never learn. I'll cripple them for life. So as parents, we need to learn how to bless and release sons and daughters in marriage. What are some of the potential results of cursing? Well, the marriage labors under a curse. Sometimes parents make a proclamation, "This won't last 6 months." Well, then the children are in the flesh to start with, trying to disprove. We'll show them this will too work. Now you're in the flesh trying to disprove somebody's words. The other thing that happens is there's a lot of judgment, resentment, bitterness toward parents. So both son and daughter-in-law or daughter and son-in-law are bitter and angry toward the parents. Both partners are striving to disprove the parents' words. And then there's an unhealthy tie back to the parents that makes it difficult to cleave to the spouse. And so that's a huge problem. What did God put in the Hebrew culture? What protective measures did God put in the Hebrew culture to ensure that every marriage would be blessed? And you'll be shocked by this one. You've probably already thought of it. What did God do? Well, in the Hebrew culture in Jesus' day, the parents chose the marriage partners. They were arranged marriages. So obviously the parents are going to bless who they chose. If the parents were involved in that choice, they're going to bless who they chose. And that's a very simple thing that God did. And see, in our culture today, that's like horrible. We thought, "Ooh, I wouldn't want my dad choosing who I'm going to marry. He'd probably choose somebody ugly or somebody I wouldn't like." But the fact of the matter is, most people are not very successful in making their own choices. I mean, in cultures where there are arranged marriages, the divorce rates are still quite low. In our culture, where kids just choose their own marriage partners, our divorce rate is 50% or more in most of our Western cultures. So how well is that working? The answer is it's not working too well. I was impacted just a few months ago. I was watching again the movie Fiddler on the Roof, an old musical movie from the 1960s. If you're not as old as I am, you may not even remember it or have even seen it. But it was about a Jewish family in the late 1800s, or I guess early 1900s is what it was, in Russia. Or Ukraine, perhaps it was. Anyway, the transition of culture that was happening and the traditions of the Jewish culture, and the father and husband was trying to decide what is really something we need to hold on to and what should we let go of. What is just tradition and what is really of God that we should hold on to, and having to struggle with that. He had 5 daughters and having to decide who they should marry and what all was happening there. But one interesting scene that really impacted me is the father and mother were called Tevye and Golda, and they sing a little song, and Tevye asks his wife, after they've been married 25 years, "Do you love me?" And she replies, "Do I love you? What kind of a silly question is that? For 25 years I've washed your clothes, I've milked your cow, I've shared your bed, I've cooked your food, and now you ask me, do I love you? What kind of a silly question? Of course I love you." And he says, "No, I know you've served me and I know you've done all those things, but what I want to know is there any feeling there? Is there a romantic feeling?" Because, see, they were married sight unseen. He said, "The first day I saw you was on our wedding day," because it was an arranged marriage. "I wonder, after 25 years, have you fallen in love with me?" And And she goes through, again, a recitation of all the service that the things that she's done and given for 25 years. And he says, I know all that. Thank you for that. But what I want to know is there any feeling? Like, do you actually love me? Do you care about me? And in the end, she says, yes, after 25 years, I guess the fact of the matter is I have fallen in love with you. I really do love you. And he says, after 25 years, that's nice to know. And I want to tell you, I love you too. And it's a very sweet, tender moment. But what I realized is what happened in that culture of arranged marriages is the feeling of romantic love is linked to service. Now listen to me carefully. Here's what God spoke to me. You fall in love with those you serve. That's a fact. You fall in love with those you serve. Do you know what most people think? You fall in love with those who serve you. You know what most people think marriage is about? Being served. I want to marry somebody who's going to serve me, who's going to be nice to me, who's going to never complain about me, who's going to agree with me about everything, who's going to do everything for me, who's going to make me feel like a real man. Or a woman, I want to marry a man who's going to make a lot of money and he's going to give it to me and we're going to be rich and we're going to travel and we're going to have a big house and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and he's going to bless me and he's going to serve me and he's going to love me and he's going to make me feel so special and so honored and so loved and so high value to him and important and high priority and I'm just going to feel like he just cares about me, like he's Jack in the Titanic movie. He's ready to throw himself overboard to save me at any moment. That's the man that I want, and that's who I'm going to fall in love with. See, the Hollywood image is you're going to fall in love with those who serve you. It's not true. It's not true. The truth is you fall in love with those you serve. I've told some married couples, why don't you just volunteer in your marriage one day a week like you would at a nursing home? You know, here's an interesting thing, just as an aside about volunteerism. When somebody goes down and serves in a nursing home, for example, they never come back from serving at the nursing home and say, those old people didn't do one thing for me today. Why not? Well, that wasn't their expectation. Their expectation was not to go to the nursing home to be served or to go to the soup kitchen to be served. But yet people who volunteer at a soup kitchen or who volunteer at a nursing home, they're some of the most fulfilled, joyful, happy people. Why? Because they're serving and blessing others. Now, here's the most amazing thing. I've heard this several times. Somebody will serve at a nursing home for 4 or 5 years, for example, serve an elderly lady in a nursing home who then dies. And when this woman dies, the volunteer who's been serving her, ministering to her for 4 or 5 years, weeps and weeps and weeps. And I've had them say, I loved Mrs. Johnson more than I loved my own mother. And I'll say, why was that? I mean, you only knew this lady 4 years, the last 4 years of her life, and you love her more than your own mother? Why is that? And the answer is this: I served her. I was there for her. I blessed her for 4 years, and when she died, it broke my heart, and I'll tell you why. Because this is the principle. You fall in love with those you serve, not you fall in love with those who serve you. That's just the opposite. Why am I saying that? Because here's what I began to realize when I watched that scene from Fiddler on the Roof, is that Tevye and Golda were married through an arranged marriage. They didn't know each other. They didn't see each other until their wedding day. So there wasn't obviously this chemistry that was there before they got married. But yet after 25 years, they're deeply in love with each other. Why are they deeply in love with each other? I'll tell you. They served each other for 25 years. And the principle is very simple. You fall in love with those you serve. Now, I find many young people don't know that in our culture today. Many married people don't know that in our culture today. That's why I've told some married people, why don't you just treat your marriage like a volunteer job one day a week? Why don't you make it your business to serve your husband that day? Why don't you make it your business to serve your wife that day? Like if the feeling of romantic love has left, you know how to restore it? Serve. Bless your husband. Bless your wife. That's how you fall in love with that person. Complaining about them, reciting all the things they do wrong, all the ways they don't serve you, all the ways they don't care about you, that doesn't cause you to fall in love with them. That causes you to fall out of love with them. That's how you drain the love in your tank. The way that you fill the love in your tank is by serving them, because you fall in love with those you serve. And again, let me just say this. I've said it about 10 times. I'll say it another 5 or 10 in this session. You don't fall in love with those who serve you. You fall in love with those you serve. I find young people today, they're afraid to get married. Many people, Christian young people, aren't getting married because they watched their parents have such a horrible experience that they're saying, oh my goodness, I don't want to repeat this awful experience that my parents had and other older adults that I've seen, so I'm just going to not get married. One person told me, I know what Paul's thorn in the flesh was. It was his wife. He was married. That was the problem. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but here's what we need to understand, is that if a young person is waiting for the perfect person, the perfect woman to come along, the perfect man to come along, I can tell you right now, that person doesn't exist. The only people we have on this planet are sinners, some of them redeemed by the blood of Jesus, but sinners nonetheless. And what that means is you're not going to find a person who's going to treat you perfectly, serve you perfectly, be nice to you all the time. The only people we have on this planet are people who are sinners, who struggle with certain things in their own personal identity, who struggle with things in their lives. And you're going to marry one of those people. And when you marry, God is going to mesh you together. But if you want to fall in love, here's what you do. Begin to serve. Why am I saying this? Because as fathers and mothers, we need to train and teach our young people, hey, you can forget about finding the perfect husband, finding the perfect wife. That person doesn't exist. God will send somebody into your life. And here's how we'll know it's God. When we're all in agreement, both dad and mom and son agree, dad and mom and daughter agree, that's a very strong likelihood that that is the Lord sending the right person. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But see, when sons and daughters think, oh, I'm going to just find the perfect person all on my own, and I'm just going to fall in love, and I'll just know it's the right person, and I'll know it's God, because there's going to be this chemistry, and I've got this list of 8 qualities that I want that person to have, and when I find that person, then I'm going to marry them. No, what's going to happen is you're looking for somebody to serve you, and if that's your attitude, you're set up for failure in the beginning. Why do arranged marriages work much better? Very simple. I don't think it's because the parents are so much better at choosing the marriage partners, although parents can see long-term character qualities, generational patterns, things that a young person can't see when they fall in love. It's sort of like the old adage, love is blind. Well, love's not just blind, it's deaf, dumb, and stupid too. I mean, the moment your heart goes out in romantic love, it's like the blinders come on. You don't see anymore long-term. You don't see what that person is going to look like 10 years from now. You don't see generational patterns. Parents do. So yes, parents can see more, but the other thing that's critical to understand about why arranged marriage cultures tend to work much better than sort of this so-called dating culture that we have in our modern Western culture is because people have 2 attitudes in the arranged marriage culture that are not common today. Here's the first attitude. The first attitude is marriage is a covenant for a lifetime. People in an arranged marriage culture understand that it's like a social shame. You become a social outcast if you get divorced in that kind of culture. So people have no expectation they would ever divorce. It doesn't matter what's happening. It's going to be for a lifetime. So that's the first attitude. Marriage is a covenant that lasts for a lifetime. The second attitude is, I come into this with the purpose of serving my husband, with the purpose of serving my wife. So I come into the relationship with the intention to serve. That changes everything. If people go into the relationship thinking, I've got to find just the right person who's going to treat me nice, who's going to serve me, who's going to make me feel good, who's going to make me happy, that is a setup for failure right off the bat. I mean, that is a way to make sure that you will destroy that relationship, is going into it with the intention that that person should be nice to you. I mean, I wrote a book called Two Fleas and No Dog that describes that relationship. A flea is a parasite looking for another host that's going to meet all its needs and bless the flea and do everything the flea needs. Well, what happens if you got two fleas that both think the other one is a great big dog, and they both get married thinking, oh, I found the perfect person I can just draw a life from, and then a couple of weeks after marriage they wake up and find out there is no dog. He wasn't the dog, she wasn't the dog. They're both two fleas trying to suck the life out of each other. Nobody has any life. That describes many people's marriages. What I'm telling you is we need to train our sons and daughters to understand this, okay? And I'm not suggesting, by the way, that we should return to the strategy of arranged marriages in our culture. I'm not sure that it would work. But here's what I do think. I think God's plan is for there to be a partnership between parents and a son and between parents and a daughter, that they are praying together. The issue is not who do I want to marry, who do my parents want me to marry. The issue is who does God want me to marry? God, let me find out your will. How are we going to know that? Well, probably when both dad and mom and son are in agreement, when dad and mom and daughter are in agreement. Let me tell you what's wrong with our current dating system. And I'm telling you, the Christian dating system doesn't really work any differently than the worldly dating system outside of the church. Here's the problem with it. The very first problem is this, that the dating system is basically it's rooted in selfishness. So I'm looking for somebody that looks good to me, that makes me feel good, that pleases me. It's motivated by self-gratification. I want that person to gratify me. I want that person to make me happy. So who am I going to date? Somebody that looks good to me, somebody that gratifies me and makes me feel good, that's beautiful to me or handsome to me. And then when that person no longer pleases me, I break the relationship, permanently terminate it, throw that person away and go and find somebody else. You know, somebody said, well, dating is good preparation for marriage. No, that's great preparation for divorce. To establish a relationship based on selfishness, rooted in self-gratification, based on physical attraction, which I permanently terminate and throw that person away when they no longer please me and go and find somebody else. That's not good preparation for marriage. That's great preparation for divorce. That's exactly what people do in divorce. That's a broken system. I mean, that thing doesn't work. God made us spirit, soul, and body, and I believe His intention is that the first thing that should be attracted and united is spirit, second is soul, third is body. But we have that inverted in our current culture, where the first attraction is physical, second is emotion and mental, and third is spiritual. That's inverted. That's upside down. And when parents are not involved in this, there's nobody looking long term. Because I'll tell you, a 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old is not looking long term. They don't usually see long term. Parents can. That's why you need another set of eyes. Let me just show you one other thing. So, suppose this is my heart. Suppose I'm 15 years old and we have a youth group here. I'm in church. This is my heart. And when hormones crank up, I get a little radar system. It's like, boop, 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 boop. I'm looking for somebody who looks beautiful. Oh, there she is. Whoa, I would like to get to know her. I start spending time with this girl, and so we start texting back and forth, and we're talking on the phone, and we go to movies, and so then we become boyfriend and girlfriend at 15 years old. Does this have a long-term goal? Like, are we planning to get married and spend a lifetime together? No. What's the goal of this relationship? Having fun. We just want to have fun. But what we've actually done is taken our hearts, and it's like we've glued them together. It's like we took that white glue and we glued these two pieces of paper together, which are our hearts. Now, because there's no long-term intention or purpose for this, and it wasn't established by God, God didn't even have a long-term intention, what's going to be the end result of this relationship? And I can tell you right now, it's going to break, and when it does, it doesn't come apart the same way it came to put together, because of the glue. There's parts of our hearts that are stuck to each other, so it comes apart. There's a ripping, there's a tearing, there's a wounding, and she keeps a part of my heart that I don't get back. Now I'm wounded, I'm hurt, I'm rejected. I just had a wounding experience, and so I feel bad about myself. I feel rejected. How am I going to solve that problem? Chances are, turn on the radar again. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, there's the new one. Let me go talk to her. Now, is my motive in this to bless this other girl? No, I'm going to use her emotionally to solve the pain that the first one caused me. So now she's going to be my girlfriend. And by the way, why is she going to let me do that? Because some other guy just broke her heart and she's wounded. She's going to use me to bring emotional comfort. And now we're going to glue our hearts together again. And this isn't going to last because it wasn't intended to. It breaks. And now I'm wounded again. Suppose I do this again and again and again and again. I give out my heart several times before I come to the point when I'm finally going to get married. And then finally, let's say I meet the woman that God did intend for me to marry. In this case, my wife, Jan. I finally meet Jan. And I know this is God. And we come to the wedding day. And I come to the wedding ceremony. And I tell her, Jan, I love you so much. I want to give you my whole heart. And this is all that's left. Because I gave out the rest of it to this girl and this girl and this girl and this girl. And it's no wonder that people have all kinds of problems when they first get married, because they have devastated their heart. They've been wounded and rejected and hurt by giving their heart to this person and get devastated, and that person and get devastated. We're not even talking about sexual relationship and what that does to the heart. But we're talking just about emotional relationship here, the dating system. What I'm telling you is that is not a good system. It is a setup for wounding, for hurt, for divorce. And you might be thinking, well, what are people supposed to do? What I think people are supposed to do is, number one, don't give your heart out as a young person to multiple people. One young woman had this experience. She was just praying when she was 16 years old. She'd been on several dates, and she was just reading through Proverbs 31. And Proverbs 31, she came upon verse 12. She does her husband good and not evil all the days of her life. And she was praying and saying, Lord, I want to be a godly woman. And the Lord said, well, are you doing your husband good all the days of your life? She said, well, God, I'm only 16 years old. I'm not married. And so how would I know? And God said, well, when does that start? Read that again. So she read it again. Oh, all the days of my life. I guess I'm already in all the days of my life. Yeah, that's right. Well, so are you doing your husband good? The Lord said, well, Lord, I don't know who he is. God said, I do. I know who he is. And she thought, oh, yeah, you do. That's true. The Lord said, are you doing your husband good? She said, well, Lord, I don't really know what that means. What does that mean? And the Lord said, think about that date you went out on last Friday night. So she did. She'd gone to the movies with a young man. And the Lord said, do you think that young man is your husband? Is he the one you're going to marry? She thought about it. She said, he's a nice guy, but no, I wouldn't marry him. I don't think he's my husband. So he's not your husband, the Lord said. He's not the one you'll marry. No, not the one I'll marry. So here's how you can tell whether you were doing him good. The Lord said, what if the man that will be your husband were sitting right next to you on the other side of you in the movies? And that picture was horrible, because she was thinking back, well, I was smooching and hugging and kissing this other guy at the movie, and if the man who would be my husband were sitting right next to me, that would hurt him. Well, Lord said, why would that hurt him? Well, because I was giving to another man what should be his. And God said, exactly. So you weren't doing your husband good, right? She said, ooh, yeah, that's right. Last date she went out on, what she decided is, she said, God, my heart belongs to you. My body belongs to you. Nobody gets my heart until you say, that's my husband, and my parents are in agreement. Now, what I just said is, I believe what we should be teaching our sons and daughters, part of the teaching that needs to happen before we release them in the ceremony to be a man, to be a woman, is what is the romantic relationship strategy that we follow in this family? And here's what I would suggest. I think the ancient path, the way of God, would be this. Please don't give your heart out to multiple people before you get married. And I'll tell you why. It hardens your heart. It puts a shell around your heart. If you give yourself out, you give your heart to a person, they wound it. You give your heart to another person, they wound it. You devastate your heart. You finally come to be married. You have so much healing that you have to go through that it takes years and years and years to get to ground zero where God intended for you to be to start when you got married. Let me just share with you one other thing. I was reading Proverbs 7. And I was sharing this actually in a conference with a group of married adults. And this is talking about the adulterous woman in Proverbs 7. And you may be thinking, why are you reading that when you're talking about marriage for our sons and daughters? And it describes this adulterous woman and a man who goes out. It says, behold, verse 10, a woman comes to meet him dressed as a harlot and cunning of heart. She is boisterous and rebellious. Her feet do not remain at home. She's now in the streets, now in the squares, lurks by every corner. She seizes him and kisses him, and with a brazen face she says to him, I was due to offer peace offerings. Today I have paid my vows. Therefore I have come out to meet you, to seek your presence earnestly, and I have found you. I have spread my couch with coverings, with colored linens of Egypt. I have sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, and you can see her seducing him. Come, let us drink our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with caresses. For my husband is not home. He's gone on a long journey. He's taken a bag of money with him, and at the full moon he will come home. With her many persuasion, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she seduces him. Suddenly he follows her as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as one in fetters to the discipline of a fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare, so he does not know it will cost him his life. And I said to these married people, okay, what is wrong with this? Here is a woman, and she's using her sexual prowess, her femininity, to entice this man. Now, let me ask you this. Who gave her that ability to seduce? Is that from the devil or from God? And a couple went, yeah, it's from the devil. I said, no, the devil didn't create her that way. God gave her that ability. The problem here is not the gift of her femininity. No, that's a gift that came from God. God created her with that ability to have that impact on a man. The problem here is she's breaking covenant. She's using it with a man that is not authorized to have that. Who's supposed to have that? Her husband. Everybody said, yes, that's right. Okay, so this gift that God gave her of her femininity to attract her husband is a gift from God. Does everybody agree with that? People said, yes, I agree with that. I said, okay, single people, close your eyes. Close your ears. Married people, listen to this. When was the last time, okay, husbands, Christian, godly husbands, listen to this. When was the last time you came home and your wife met you at the door? She seized you and kissed you, and she said to you, come, I've been seeking out your presence and I've found you. My husband, I've spread our couch with coverings, with colored linens of Egypt. I've sprinkled our bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us drink our fill of love. Let us delight ourselves with caresses. Come, my husband. I said, when was the last time your wife treated you that way? And one guy back in the back, he went, never. My wife never did that. And I realized, okay, this is a gift that godly women have to give to their husband. They're supposed to give it to their husband. Do you know why in most marriages that wife doesn't give that gift to her husband? She doesn't give to her husband what she should have, what was supposed to be given to him. And here's the reason. Because that gift was totally destroyed before they even got married. And let me tell you how. It's because of the dating system. Because this woman, as a young woman, most young women, who protects them from the lust of young men? Let me ask you this. Who's supposed to protect a young woman from the lust of young men? And the answer is her father. her father is supposed to protect her from the lust of young men. Now, what if the father's not in place and he doesn't do that? Then who has to protect her? She has to protect herself. So if she wants to be a godly woman, she has to go through all those single years saying, no, 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 staving off the lust of young men. And every time she does that, she hardens her heart. She takes a defensive position. I have to push them away. They're coming trying to take something that I'm not willing to give, so I have to say no, no, no. Or she just succumbs to immorality and lets them have what they want. Okay, what if a godly woman says no, 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 or allows men to come and take from her sexually? She's going to defile herself. She's going to destroy the gift. And let me ask you this. Do you think a young woman, a godly young woman who has to go through single years saying no, 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 no to all these young men, she's hardening her heart. But the day she gets married, that hardness just instantly disappears and goes away, right? No. She goes into marriage with a defensive posture, with an image in her mind. Men are trying to take something from me. My job is to protect myself and push them away. Is that going to be a good thing in marriage? And the answer is absolutely not. And what if a young man has never allowed God to deal with the lust in his heart, and he's never understood the difference between sexual attraction, which is legitimately from God, and lust, which is taking something outside of covenant that does not belong to you? And he's never understood that, so he goes into marriage with lust, with a gimme, gimme, my name's Jimmy attitude, and she goes into marriage with no, no, no. Can you see there might be a little bit of a setup for a problem? Okay, how do we change that so that doesn't happen for our sons and daughters? God's ancient path, which is a partnership between a father and his daughter, and a father and a son, where father and daughter can make an agreement. And I know several families that have done this, and it's been a great blessing, where daughters have said, if you want to have a relationship with me, just talk to my dad. And then the daughters will call the dad, hey, Dad, this is a good one. Talk to him. Or, hey, Dad, get rid of this one quick. And the dad becomes the screen. He's the one that says no. And, you know, if a young man, if a daughter says, hey, I don't just date people casually. I don't have a relationship with people, with young men, unless I believe that that is someone God has sent to potentially be a marriage partner. And if you think that's you, please call my dad. Well, you know, most people just won't even call. I mean, that's the end of it right there. And, you know, that is so powerful to protect the hearts of young women. And this is what God had in mind, I believe, is that a family would work together, that parents understand this. And again, you might be thinking, wow, this is really foreign to our culture. And I'm telling you, it's foreign to our culture. But if we would begin to walk in this and teach our sons and daughters, what is our romantic relationship strategy and what is our marriage partner selection strategy in this family? Let's talk about it and let's walk in it. Let's agree in advance. Let's not just wait till somebody's heart goes out in romantic love and then we got to figure out, well, man, you chose a drug dealer to marry. That's not going to be the right guy. And then we have all this horrible conflict. That's because we didn't teach our daughters in the first place at the time of their bar barakah or bat barakah ceremony. We didn't teach our sons. And so this is a critical thing to learn. I just want to share with you again a testimony of a young woman, Salome Pistulka, and this is so powerful just to hear her testimony. She's going to share again just how she gave that authority to her parents. And I want to share with you, I talked with her father just today before I recorded this, and this young woman recorded this when she was 15. I believe she's now 20 years old. She's been serving Youth with a Mission in New Zealand for some period of time. But God spoke to her about a year ago about a young man that she felt like might be the one God would send to be her husband. And she shared that with her parents. And just today, her parents were sharing with me that they had been in contact with the parents of that young man who had also been thinking and praying about their son and thinking maybe this daughter would be the one. And so the parents are talking together. The two young people would have a desire to get to know each other. And so the families are involved. Now, I don't know if that's going to result in a marriage or not, but that is the correct way of how it should be done. And see, this daughter's heart has been preserved for this whole time. She hasn't given her heart out to 20 people, so that when she gives her heart to the man who will be her husband, she has a whole heart to give him, not just some little tiny piece, of what's left after having given her heart to, 10 other people on the way. She has a whole heart to give her husband. And this is so powerful, again. So just listen to this testimony of Salome. Again, her father is Austrian. Her mother is Colombian. They grew up in Bogota, Colombia. So English is not her native language, but she's a very fluent English speaker. Let's listen to this story.
Salome, can you share a little bit about your own life as well, what you've experienced with God and His blessing in your life? All right.
The most beautiful thing for me personally is that whatever my parents speak here up front, they live it. And it's something that I don't believe is very common right now, that people just go up and speak whatever they want and they don't live it. But the best thing is that I also can share it. And I just want to, tell you everything that's happened. I remember a few years ago, my parents started to bless us every Friday night, especially. And I remember at first that I was bored, that I didn't like it. I was like, normally it's like they bless us and then we have dinner. And I would be like, just finish, I want to eat dinner. So at first it was like that. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And thank you, Dad. Nice words. But then when the tool of repentance also started to come, it started to break my heart and to see that it has power. I don't know, but forgiveness really has this big influence, this big power over people. Normally when forgiveness comes, people cry and words come. So when my parents started to ask forgiveness and my heart started to heal, I started to receive the blessing, and the things that have happened are amazing and are beautiful. Especially I remember a lot that a big change came when I had my Bat Baraka, when I was 12 years old. And I remember at first that it was like just a ceremony. But then I realized the power that it had, because the decisions I took and the decisions my parents took, and that I was now with my father more than I was with my mother, changed a lot of things in my life. And normally, in this age, people start to say that teens start to get rebellious and that their hormones start to get all crazy and that they do all these unnecessary things. But it wasn't true in my life. For some reason, my hormones didn't get crazy, or I didn't have any I don't know. But when my parents started to bless me, they also started to impart truth into my life, and they started to tell me that I didn't need to get my identity from other people. And I'm glad that I receive it from now and not when I'm older, because the sooner the better. And my parents, when they did this, my relationship with God opened, because I was like, I need my identity from Him. And for that to happen, I need to listen to Him. So that started to happen in my life, and that started to change immensely, because when my parents blessed me, it was like God speaking to me. It was like something growing inside of me. I felt things changing, and I saw how I was changing. I saw how I used to be and how I am now. How I used to act like my friends, and now I think totally differently. And it's become something that I can live on, that I can stand on, and not something that I can just say, yeah, my parents blessed me, and it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with me, because I've seen a great change. I wish I could open my heart and let you see everything that's happened, because it's a great change. It's a beautiful change, and you have this tool. Use it. Don't just share it with other people and be like, here's this tool, use it, it's good. Live it and let other people see it. When we go everywhere and we talk, the thing that people say that impacts them the most is our relationship, that they see something different. So if you live it, and then you go share it, it's going to have a greater impact and it's going to be worth it. I don't find it worth it when people get up here and start to talk and then they live something different and then their family's destroyed. I don't see a point in that because the family's first. God created the family. There's a unity in the family. There's power in family. And there's no need to just leave everything behind and go talk, but to live it and then to talk has a greater impact. And in my life personally, especially in the area of relationships, God has been touching that a lot and has been using me because when I did my Bad Baraka, I made some commitments for to not have relationship with boys like in any type, emotional, romantic or anything. And that has had a great impact on me because I can always trust in my dad. He can be the door to my life because I can be secure, because there can be walls, there can be protection around my life. And that changes a lot because then when somebody comes to me and asks me if they want to have a relationship with me, I tell them to go to my dad. And then that just stops. Normally if you tell them, like no, they'll keep insisting, but you tell them go ask my dad and they never appear again.
Right.
But one thing that I know that has happened in my life is that my parents closed that door in me, like for my life. Because nobody has ever come to ask me to have a relationship with them. Thank God, because I don't want it. I see it in my friends all the time, and I see that it destroys them. But in my life, nobody has ever had to do that. If they will, I will have a protection there. My parents closed that door before Satan had the opportunity to come and to destroy and to do things that weren't right. So, I really encourage you to start to build a foundation in the lives of your children. When you bless them, doors are opened and things will happen because you are prophets to your children's life. It may be, you might think it's too early, you might think it's too late, but God does not think so. He has His timing and sometimes we miss it, but it doesn't mean that He won't help you there. It still can happen and God can still do things. And I really encourage you to use that tool, to live it, to build that foundation in your children's life so that the relationship with God may also be vivid and their future may be totally different than what people are living now.
That's great.
Now, I hope you're catching the vision of this, of what could be. And if your children are young, you have an opportunity to teach them this. Now, if your children are already teenage years, it may take some time of winning their hearts. It's not something you can just impose as a father. Okay, you're doing this. No more dating. That's it. You're going to... That isn't going to work because you're going to have to win the heart of your daughter, win the heart of your son first. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing is your children might be grown. They might have already had all kinds of problems in marriage and you realize, gee, this is because we didn't understand this, we didn't do this. Here's what you can know. God is a redeemer. Intercede for your children who are married. If they've got all kinds of problems, all kinds of battles and struggles, intercede, pray for them. God is a redeemer. God is a healer. God will do miracles in the life, in the marriage of your son or daughter, your adult children. And, even if you're in a situation where your daughter or son is dating somebody that you don't approve of, pray. God is a redeemer. God is a healer. God will do incredible things. And, But we need to understand this. A part of a culture of blessing is creating a situation where every marriage is blessed because the parents and sons and daughters have walked together in relationship. And it's not something that kids just sprung on their parents. I'm going to marry this person. I'm going to marry that person. And I don't care what you think. And this kind of broken relationship is what sets us up for devastation. Again, let me just say the most important thing you can teach your children is very simple. You fall in love with those you serve. Find the person that God has called you to stand beside and serve for a lifetime. You'll fall in love with that person. If you're just looking for somebody that's going to treat you nice and make you happy, you have set yourself up for a lifetime of destruction and devastation and wounding and hurt because you're selfish. And I'll tell you who you're going to marry, somebody at least as selfish as you, who's got the same thought pattern that you have. So don't do that. Teach your sons and daughters unselfishness, loving God, putting Him first, putting His purpose first, and walking with my parents is a far better way than just doing what I want because I want to, and setting up a destructive pattern, which is what many, many people have done. So I hope this helps you, and we've got some other materials that you can look on our website, craighill.org, and find some other materials that will help you with this in the future. We'll give you even more strategies of how to work with sons and daughters who are planning to get married. So God bless you. Let me just pray for you. And again, we've got some notes in the workbook that are going to help you what you can do now if you've done this wrong, or you just realize that you've never released your son, you've never released your daughter. Well, how can you do that at this point, your adult son or daughter? And you'll see in the workbook some steps that you can work through. So please do the homework after this lesson. All right, let's pray. Father, I just thank you so much for your strategy, for your ancient path of marriage. And Father, I pray that you would use us as fathers and mothers to impart blessing to our sons and daughters, to train them, to teach them in your ancient path, that we could protect their hearts, Lord, that our sons and our daughters could go into marriage without having a damaged heart that's been destroyed and rejected and wounded and hurt, but could be able to give their whole heart to a wife, to a husband. And Father, I pray that you would use us to bless our sons and daughters, that we could go to their wedding with wholehearted support, to bless them, to bless their wedding, to launch them like a rocket ship into their destiny. Father, use us that way in the lives of our children to empower them to prosper in their marriage now or future marriage, in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.